What I'm working on here is a 0325 saw chain, 18-inch on a Stihl MS260. Great tool to have is a stump vise. I have the Stihl branded one. There's many other brands out there. What I look for is the colored link, and that's where I start my sharpening process at. As you can see, the yellow link right here. So what you basically do, I got a stump vise here, saw section of a stump. Basically you just want to follow the guidelines on the guide tool right here, 30 degrees, basically what I sharpen all my saws to. I'm going to hold this file guide either 90 degrees to the chain or a slight 10-degree uphill motion. I generally try to stay right straight across. You don't really want to drag the file backwards across the tooth. It dulls your file. So you just want to go one fluid motion. If you're uncomfortable holding the chain stable, you can always tighten the chain up and lock the chain brake on the saw. Occasionally smacking your file knocks your filings off of your file, which allow the file to cut better without those filings clogging up the grooves of the file. On most of your chains, they put a mark right there that indicates the angle that this was originally ground to and what you should try to follow. With every Stihl chain you buy, in the package should come a sharpening guide. Basically it tells you all the particular angles that you want to adhere to. So that's all the one side cutters. Now we're going to switch sides and do the other side cutters. Once again, there's our plated or yellow link. So we start right there. If you don't have that, you can use a marker and mark it. You can basically feel the chain. Grab your finger or skin. I do most of this by feel. There is a look to it. Try to let the file do the work. Going to use here 325 chain. This particular chain, we're going to use the 0.65 raker guide. Again, follow suit, plated link. You can kind of hear that it's not touching the raker, so that raker's good. You want to hold this perfectly flat to the top of the chain. You don't want to go like that. I try to draw it back against the tooth. You can hear when it cuts it. Basically you want all your raker height the same height. It controls the depth. Not enough causes you not to cut wood efficiently and make sawdust, and basically makes the raker guide across the wood, not the cutter digging into the wood. Too much of a depth causes it to put too much load on the saw, causes the saw to bog down into the wood, also causes to take too big of a chip. Kind of feel and hear the difference when you're filing. You're not trying to file away your tool, you're trying to file away just the cutter. Something you can also do is across the top, you create a flat top of your raker. Come across and hold the file. Kind of just round it off, being careful not to cut your freshly sharpened cutter, and also try to eliminate taking that down any further and make the depth of cut too much. I don't get too crazy with this. There we have it. Freshly sharpened chain. Very dangerously sharp, but that's what you want for a chainsaw. Very dangerous tool, but in the right hands, really makes cutting firewood a fun and easy job to do. Change out the chain. Break your bar nuts free. Crack free your chain guide to tensioning take your bar nuts off. Cool thing contained within this Stihl kit: your round file and sharpening guide, depth gauge and tool file, and your instructions, basically giving you your specs on each chain, which is kind of the same for all. This section of the tool here is really good and designed for cleaning out your guide bar track. Got to be careful though, because the edges of your guide bar can get sharp from wear. Your oiling hole, the end of it's designed to fit perfectly in the oiling hole. I like to use the edge and clean the bar off like that. Like I said, you can use this tool, kind of scrape off. If you go across the bar like this, you feel any burrs, good indication, either a lack of oil, dull chain, no real burrs. You can always take your file for sharpening chain and just go across like that and take that burr off like that so you don't get cut. Other thing that's cool is on here is a gauge that you can use to check your depth of your guide bar groove, because you don't want the drive links of your chain to run into the bottom of the groove in the bar. You want your chain to basically ride on these two rails. Okay, that's where the chain's designed to ride on. What you're looking for when you have the guide bar off: any cracks, any defects in the bar, any pinches in the bar. Good indication of a pinch in a bar is if you have a section like that that's worn off with paint. That means it got hot. Always flip your bar so you create even wear on the top and on the bottom surfaces. Just in case you didn't watch our chain making video, that right there, this link here is your drive link. That's your cutter, that's your tie bar. Bottoms of them have wear indicators on them because that's where the chain is supposed to ride, not ride on this part, the drive link. Okay? You put a chain back on the guide bar, because we're going to put this chain on to sharpen it. The top of the chain, the cutters should always face the end of the bar on the top side. I like to take the chain, lay it in the nose, the trick I was showed years ago is take a rubber band and put a rubber band here or multiple places, and that holds the chain in place on the guide bar. Good time to service everything when you're sharpening. Kind of wipe off your excess sawdust and excess oil off of your components. Sawdust likes to clog things up. The oil, of course, collects on it and then just makes a mess. Quick tip and quick caution: if you're walking in shoes, bare feet, sharpening your chains in the garage, to keep the wife, girlfriend, mom happy, make sure you don't have any of this sawdust on your feet when you walk in the house, because it contains oil. So yes, it will get all over the carpets, rugs, hardwood floor, and stain stuff. Quick thing on the inside of your saw: that's your clutch and sprocket assembly right here. Okay, you want to wipe this area out. Got there, shouldn't you? That right there is your adjusting pin. This is what you turn. I like to scrape all the dust out of there using this tool. Works out great. Scrape that out. This way you got a nice good screwdriver slot. You can clean this out. That's your oil port. Don't get any dirt, debris in there. Try to keep it clean. That's what feeds oil to your bar to keep your chain lubricated. That frequently can clog up. More likely, the little hole inside your bar clogs up first. What we're going to do here, just a quick service tip, is this is your sprocket. Okay, that's what drives the chain. Okay, this is a rim style sprocket, so it moves across here freely, designed to do that. Okay, while we have the chain off and the bar off and everything, what we do is pop this little clip. You can use this tool, the corner of your scrunch or a screwdriver. And what you do is you can slip this little collar off, washer. You can inspect this for wear. And then there's a bearing inside here that gets lubricated inside your clutch. There's the bearing right here on the shaft of the crankshaft. What I like to do is take this, wipe this down inside. Make sure there's no cracks in this drum, clutch drum. On Stihl branded chainsaws, there's a little cutout right here on your modern saws. That little cutout drives the oiler. So when you put that back into the saw, you don't just boom, put it in, try to force the clip on. What you got to do is you got to look for the little notch between the clutch. Okay, and then you just line that up, drop it on, make sure it drops in place, and it's free. There's a good little tool. It's designed for greasing the tip of the guide bar. If you have a guide bar that has a grease port, slip this off. To get the grease to come out, you got to kind of push this, kind of grip it gently, squirt some grease like that. Take that grease, kind of pack your bearing. Quick thing, when this bearing does fail, and they do fail, when you start your saw, it automatically wants to get the chain to move. Put a little bit of lube, shaft of the crankshaft. So back to what I was saying, is if you start your saw and your chain's spinning the whole time, sometimes the saw won't start, or you can't even pull the cord if you have your chain brake on. A lot of times this bearing seizes up, and when this bearing seizes up, it won't allow the clutch to freewheel. Here we are, got some lube on that. This lube won't hurt this. work your guide bar. Take a little bit of lube, put it on the inside of the sprocket. Don't necessarily want to get crazy. Wipe your scrunch off. You can take the round part of your scrunch, just coat it up. I don't know if this is recommended or not. Something I do is put a little bit of lube where these splines touch the rim. That's called a rim drive sprocket. And then you're looking for that little piece inside there. It's a little piece of wire. Sometimes you can actually just lay this on and you feel how it dropped. So if you pull it off, there we go. So you see how it's above. Just gently rotate it. And you see it drop right there. It tells you you're locked on. Take your rim, slide your rim on. These can go on either way. You can put it on that way. Put it with the lettering out. Now, one of two ways you can do this. If you're in the field and you don't have a pair of pliers, take your tool. Now, one disadvantage of doing this is you run the risk of shooting a clip somewhere, and you can bop it like that, and it'll snap right in place. Or take a multi-tool, pair of pliers, whatever you have, just gently squeeze it. It'll lock in place. Make sure everything spins. Notice the difference in the sound. Before, when I was spinning it, you were kind of growly or making some noise. Now you're nice and smooth. That bearing is earmarked to be replaced. Probably the next time I do a sharpening on the saw, I'll get a bearing for it and replace it. I have them on hand. Now how I do it, always make sure that the cutter on the bottom of the bar is facing toward the saw, because that's the way it rotates. Your chain rotates in this fashion. You want to draw your wood to the bar on the bottom. So what you do is hold it. Careful not to cut yourself because it is nice and sharp. Get yourself lined up. Lay it in the groove. Something you can do just to help you when you get your cover on is adjust your screw, tensioning screw, just a little bit to kind of hold you on till you get your clutch cover on. Nice and cleaned up. You want to inspect these nylon inserts, make sure they're not worn, chipped, torn away. Guide bar nuts on. Get them both started, kind of snug, finger tight. What I do is generally just run them up a little tiny bit, hand tight, and then back them free a little bit. That allows you still to move the bar in there. Generally what I do is pull up on the bar and then feel the tension on the chain. Okay, you shouldn't be able to pull the teeth, the drive links, out of the bottom. So you just kind of snug it up a little bit. Pulling up like this on the bar. Snug these down with your scrunch and then rotate it, pulling down, moderate pressure, and you should be good. Now this chain we're going to sharpen because this chain's going to stay on the saw. Snug it down, making sure your chain still spins. Quick tip, in the woods you don't have a marker to mark the chain, you can't find the yellow or green colored link, that where the chain was put together. Take the sawdust, if your chain's got sawdust on it, scrape your sawdust off and make the link noticeably different than the other links.